Hey, what's up everybody? This is Tattoo Bart and welcome back to the channel. In today's episode, we're gonna review some needles, and I've actually had these needles laying in my closet for a very long time waiting to get reviewed, but somehow I didn't really find the time. It's the Elite INFINI cartridges, and actually in between the time that I got these products and in between this video, a lot of things happened with this brand, because I think even Killer Ink and some of the bigger suppliers are actually selling these needles right now. Of course, you can also buy them through the official website, which will be linked in the description down below, as well as a coupon code, so you can have an extra 10% discount on this product as well. Now, whenever I review needles, there's always a couple of different things I want to test. I always want to test out the ink flow, the stability within the cartridge or within the housing of the cartridge itself, and how it actually tattoos, how stable are the needles and things like that. So those are all things we're going to be testing today. I actually got a couple of different sizes. Very tight 5-round liner, a 7-round liner, and a 14-round liner. And then I have some 9 curved magnums and some 15 curved magnums. These are also the needles I actually use the most. So when I got to pick a couple of sizes, I always obviously take sizes that I prefer to use myself, so we can test them all out on practice skin. But first we're gonna unbox them, have a look at how these cartridges are actually built, so stay tuned. So let's have a look at the packaging. As you can see, it contains 20 needles with a safety membrane. It's got the logo and the name up here. Then on this top side, it's a 12 7RL regular tight round liner. When you open your box, it's a standard opening box, and you will have your needles right here. As you can see, I have been using a couple of them for some other reviews as well. Let's see how they snap off. It's actually very good. So the packaging is also very nice. And let's open this needle up. Now, these are very easy to open, even with gloves on, nice and well sealed. And this is the cartridge right here. Now, what I always really like is if they have a number on them somewhere. Right here, where the clear plastic basically starts, it says 7R. Which I always find very convenient, because sometimes you have a whole bunch of cartridges laying out on your work table, and it's just easier to see rather than poking the needle out and guessing which needle it is. That you can actually see, okay, this is my 7, this is my 5, this is my 14, and so on and so on. I'm gonna open it up from here. So as you can see, this is basically the safety membrane right here. It goes onto like a rubber kind of tube, so your ink doesn't really flow back into the housing of your cartridge. Then here it's also met with another plastic point that will make sure it doesn't leak, which is good. Now, I do have to say, on another video I was recording, this membrane actually broke, and then your needle will be pretty much pushed in your housing, and it's not gonna move anywhere. Now, another thing I really like to check is how much wiggle room, or however you want to call it, is in the housing of the cartridge. But as you can see, if I am moving this pin side to side, when I push it down, it is not really going anywhere. So this is in there pretty solid. Now, of course, this is a 7-round liner. I also want to see how that looks like on the super tight 5-round liner. Since this needle is a bit smaller, I'm wondering if it wiggles a little bit more, but I don't think so. It's in there very, very, very solid, which I really like. Now, there's only one concern, one thing I wonder is if this needle is in there so tight, how will the ink flow be? I mean, will it kind of get stuck in there, or will it flow fairly well? So that's something we're gonna figure out. I'm gonna get some practice skin ready and see how these actually align. For this video, I'm gonna use my Lithuanian Irons Buffalo, and this machine has a 5mm stroke, which we are definitely gonna need to push that 14 round liner. Now let's see, we're gonna start with the 5 round liner, and we're just gonna pull some lines and see how that feels. Now what I'm curious to see is how is that ink flow when my needle is sticking out pretty far. As you can see, I just want to see how that ink will flow. So here you go. So this is a 5 round liner. As you can see, even when my needle is out super far, it still gives good ink flow. Now let's bring it back a little bit, because it's actually a bit nicer for me to line like that. Still have good ink flow. It doesn't create a whole bunch of puddles. So those are 7 round liners. Now I did notice on the 14 round liner that it does move around a little bit more. There's a little bit more room around the needle. Now I do think that probably has to do that this needle will use a lot more ink, so it needs more ink to be around the needle. So let's see how that works. Takes up ink very well. Very nice 14 round liner lines. And the ink flow on these is absolutely amazing. I really like how the ink is flowing from the cartridge. It doesn't really create any large puddles. Now one thing we didn't really check yet is the Magnum, so let's grab a Magnum and see how they look. So we got the 15 Magnum. and the 9 Magnum. They're both curved Magnums. They do wiggle around quite a bit in their housing. But let's see how stable they run. The 15 also wiggles around a little bit. Let's see what happens when we plug them into the machine. Are they gonna be noisy? Are they just gonna be stable? Let's find out. So this is gonna be our 9 Magnum. Let's do a bit of whip shading. Works quite well. Doesn't make any strange sound. It's not moving around. Let's see what happens when we back a little bit. See if I can see the needle moving around. No. It stays steady in its place. Very nice. Now let's do the 15 Magnum. Using whip shading. Also very nice. And backing. Usually I'm not a big fan of backing color with a large Magnum, but it can work on practice skin for sure. But if I have to do a traditional piece, I'd rather use a smaller Magnum. But I guess that's personal preference. Let's quickly go back up top and we'll talk about these cartridges just a little bit more. Well, I can definitely understand why bigger distributors are starting to sell Elite cartridges because they are working absolutely top class. They have very good ink flow, and the needle consistency is very good. It's not a very soft needle like you have on some of the cheaper cartridges that, needles bend out when you're lining and all terrible stuff will happen. These are actually very solid needles. I was a little bit concerned when I saw the 14 round liner moving around in its housing a little bit, but actually once you're tattooing with it, you don't really notice any of that. And I always think, especially on very small needles, it's really important that it's very tight in its housing and still contains like a good ink flow, because I think I had this problem with some of Quadro needles actually, with the cartridges with the super tight 5 round liner, where you do not really get ink flow very well from the cartridge, so you're actually damaging skin without leaving ink behind, in worst case scenario. Now I do have to say ink flow also has to do with the ink that you're using, because currently I switched over to using dynamic ink, and I don't know if it's the same with the regular dynamic, but since I'm in Europe I have to get the REACH conform kind of inks. And the reach dynamic, the Union Black, is actually very watery, so I have to get used to it a little bit because it either spills a lot of ink uh, or it actually flows really nice. But I have to play around a little bit, and I haven't tested that ink with these cartridges yet. So I'm also very curious to see how that actually plays out. Now, of course, I'm gonna use these needles in some of my tattoo videos as well. So make sure you check those videos too, so you can see how these needles actually work on real skin. Now, if you are interested in buying these products, of course you can buy them from Killer Ink, like I mentioned before, and probably some other distributors. But I do have their own website in the description down below, as well as a coupon code to give you an extra 10% discount when you're buying any of their products. Also, I have reviewed the pocket Bluetooth printer of Elite as well. If you haven't seen that video, make sure you check it out. It's on my channel and I will link it in the description down below as well. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot more to say than obviously like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I wish you all a wonderful day and I will see you in the next video.